Run, something inside him said. Run! The Trebhum was drawn to a bright light, or perhaps to the creature next to it. Except for the grass growing on the Old One's head, they were very much alike. It knew the older Trebhum had carried this light for a long, long time. How quickly it learned to use its legs and its trunk. But these things were not so much learned as they were remembered. Perhaps the little Trebhum thought they were a gift from the strange voice it heard in its mind. That, too, was a kind of memory. It would not allow it. Run, the inner voice said, run! The towers would not stop the cylinder unless they were activated. Quickly, the Trebhum had to step on the symbol or the cylinder would not be stopped. The voice inside the Trebhum's memories assured it that while the tower stood, the Trebhum would be safe. The power of the eternal cylinder was contained for now. It was hard for the Trebhum to know what to do or where to go. But the friendly voice suggested this was not the right way. To find your path, it said, you must follow the beam of light that emanates from the tip of the tower, and stay away from the deep waters where the old things dwell. The Trebhum found themselves almost as lost as they had been in the beginning. But the voice in their memories comforted them. It was only natural to be confused, it said. They had been born into a strange, broken world, cut off from the history of their ancestors. Everyone was a little lost these days. What mattered was to keep going, to keep looking for answers, to keep carrying the light they held within them, the light that stopped the cylinder. In this strange, eerie temple, the Trebhum felt something stir in their memories. There was a great power in this place, something from the days when even the elders were young. Perhaps it could help them. The Trebhum were disoriented for a moment. Something new had entered their memories and they needed to make sense of it. It seemed to be a map. And on this map, a location had been marked. If they understood correctly, there was some manner of serpent, a guardian, a greater being of some kind, somehow linked to a safe haven. Could they find refuge there? Their ancestors must have created this map for a reason. What manner of strange beast lurked behind the cylinder? The Trebhum were deeply unsettled by this new mystery. But though some part of them was curious, they were certain it would be best not to find out. As their fear faded, the Trebhum started feeling weak and tired. With all the excitement and adventure, they'd neglected their most basic needs. The sound of an empty stomach reminded them that survival requires more than escaping from danger. You also have to eat. Luckily, one of the many gifts of the Trebhum is the capacity to store food in their bodies. But they still need to digest it to gain the vital energy that gives them strength. And for such small creatures, they do require rather a lot of food. Fortunately, the savannah was rich in flora and fauna which would satisfy their little bellies without necessarily triggering a mutation. cylinder roared with fury. The voice in their memories spoke with great urgency. The Trebhum had to be very careful now. The cylinder would lash out at the land, but it would not let them run too far. To survive, they would have to stay in the eye of the storm. As frightening and surprising as this enormous creature was, the Trebhum felt a sense of relief to see it descend from the sky. This was the celestial being they'd been told to seek. Perhaps it held an answer to their troubles.
De skovler penge i på at snyde andre, som gladeligt køber en computer, der både kan tale og svare.
We did it!
Who would answer their questions in this place? Encountering another elder was a happy moment. The Trebhum asked how they might survive the cylinder, and the elder replied, "I can feel your fear, little ones. Ever since this cataclysm began, we have been seeking ways to stop it. But the cylinder is relentless and indestructible. It will consume everything in its path. So, perhaps what we need to do is go behind it. I have discovered a mutation that allows us to rise into the sky. You must seek a weeping tree from which grows a special fruit that floats as it becomes ripe. It is the key to the transformation I have undergone. With it, you can use geysers to float well above the cylinder's height. My only regret is that I have grown too old and weak to help you with this task. If you find any glimmer of hope on the other side, remember me. Farewell." Sadness and fear filled the Trebhum's hearts as they left the Elder's cave. Their only path to salvation was full of uncertainty, and they could not forget the thing they had seen lurking behind the cylinder, casting a dark shadow over this glimpse of light. The Trebhum had never seen this mysterious tree the Elder spoke of. They would have to keep moving forward and hope it lay somewhere ahead. The cylinder would give them no other choice. What was this monstrous creature? Was this one of the cylinder's servants? The ones the Elder had warned them of? Its very form terrified the Trebhum. Even the voice and their memories seemed frightened of it. And then, somehow, the Trebhum remembered the creature's name. It was called the Mathematician. Even with the ability to float, overcoming the cylinder would have to be done very carefully. What they needed was a geyser that was well positioned, close to the cylinder, when it lay still, or their plan would never work. They would have to keep looking, and meanwhile they would try not to think about what sort of monster could kill one of the flying serpents. The mathematician vanished as quickly as he had appeared, back to what? What lay behind the cylinder?
Skull. In the dream inside the strange giant's mind, the voice that spoke to the Trebhum seemed different. It was less like a memory, more like something alive. But there were so many other voices too, lost in this place.
I remember the mountains of my home, the vast forests, the clouds hanging low overhead, the cities in the valleys where the rivers ran. I remember the faces of my children and the songs we sang when the stars rose high. But I have forgotten the names of all these things, and slowly one melts into the other. My children will become mountains, the forests will become songs, and then all will become one and be nothing.
there was something hidden. This was a place of death and nothingness. There were no answers to be found here. The voice and their memories urged them to return to the lands of the living. A profound feeling of futility overcame the Trebhum. Despite having miraculously survived their encounter with the mathematician, they were back to where they'd started. To make matters worse, ahead of them lay the cold and snowy lands of the tundra. Not a very nice place for Trebhum who are not meant to live in the cold. They would have to push forward against all odds and pray that they could find help.